The signal arrived at Earth quietly, almost unnoticed at first. It slipped through the deep space listening network as a broken stream of data, weak and damaged by distance. For a few seconds, it was nothing more than noise mixed with the endless background of the universe. Then the system flagged it. 3 repeating pulses. A pause, then again. A pattern that had only one meaning. It was an SOS. The message was old. Very old. Analysts later estimated it had been traveling for more than 6 years. Even so, the emergency markers were clear. Someone somewhere had been in danger long enough to send the call again and again, hoping someone would hear it. At the Earth Deep Space Command Center, night and day did not matter. The room was always lit the same way, filled with quiet machines and soft voices. When the alert sounded, Technician Era froze at her station. She leaned closer to the screen, her eyes moving fast as the data unpacked itself. "Supervisor," she said, keeping her voice calm. "I have an emergency signal. Non-human origin." The room shifted at once. Chairs turned. Conversations stopped. A signal like this did not appear often. Supervisor Min walked over and stood behind Era. He was an older man with tired eyes, but they sharpened as he studied the screen. "Confirm it," he said. Era ran the checks again. The code structure was not human, but the logic was familiar. Fear, urgency, location data that drifted and corrected itself as if the sender had been moving. The message was damaged, but parts of it repeated clearly. Help. Habitat failing. Under attack. "It's real," Era said softly. "It's a distress call." Min nodded once. "Route it up. Full priority." Within minutes, the signal reached the highest levels of command. Commander Jin was awake when the message arrived. He always was. His office overlooked the dark curve of Earth, glowing with city lights on the night side. When the alert chimed, he turned from the window and activated the display. The data filled the air in front of him. Broken words, numbers, images formed from fragments of scans. A damaged station. Empty corridors. Flickers of movement that could have been people or something else. "How bad?" Jin asked. Analyst Nari appeared beside the display, her face serious. "We are still decoding, sir. The signal is old, but it kept repeating. That means someone wanted to be heard, even if they did not expect an answer." Jin folded his hands behind his back. "Do we know who sent it?" "Not yet. The species is unknown. The technology level appears lower than ours. The location is near the outer nebula line." Jin exhaled slowly. That region was dangerous. Radiation storms. Unstable gravity. Few species could survive there for long. "And the threat?" he asked. Nari hesitated. "We don't have clear data, but the damage patterns suggest weapons fire. Organized, not an accident." The room was silent for a moment. Earth had a rule, written long before first contact with alien life. Any clear distress call would be answered if it was within human reach. It did not matter who sent it or why. That rule had never been broken. Distance? Jin asked. "Extreme," Nari replied. "Only long-range warships could reach it safely. Deathworld-rated vessels." Jin nodded once. He already knew the answer. "Then prepare them." The order moved fast. Faster than any debate. Across Earth orbital shipyards, warning lights flashed. Massive ships that rested in quiet standby began to wake. Hull plates shifted. Reactors came online. Crews were summoned from sleep, from training, from family dinners left unfinished. On the warship Resolve, Captain Hyon stood on the bridge as systems powered up around him. The ship was built for places that tried to kill you. Thick armor. Heavy engines. Gravity control strong enough to crush bones if misused. What's the mission? He asked. First Officer Day checked his console. Unknown species distress call. Possible hostile contact. Long-range deployment. Hyen nodded. So it's one of those? Yes, sir. Hyen looked at the main display as Earth slowly drifted away. He felt no fear, only focus. Ships like the Resolve existed for moments like this. When something went wrong far from safety. In another section of the ship, Yuna sat at her station and ran combat predictions. She was young, but her eyes were steady. The simulations showed high risk. Unknown enemies were always dangerous. Unknown environments even more so. She saved the results and sent them to the bridge. Then she paused and looked at the small symbol on her screen. A simple icon that marked the source of the SOS. Someone was out there. Waiting. Back on Earth. The public announcement was brief. A long-range fleet had been deployed in response to a distress signal. No details were given. There were no cheers, no panic. Just quiet acceptance. Humanity had done this before. As the fleet gathered beyond Earth's orbit, Commander Jin watched from the command center. 3 warships. Enough to fight. Enough to protect. Open a channel, he said. The captains appeared on the display, standing on their bridges. You know why you are going, Jin said. We do not know what you will face, but we know why we answer. Hyen inclined his head. We will find them, and if the enemy is still there? Jin asked. Then they will learn, Hyen replied calmly. That Earth listens. The channel closed. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, vanishing into the dark between stars. As they traveled, the scientists continued to study the SOS. New details emerged. The station was part of a small alliance, made up of species adapted to low gravity and calm environments. They were not fighters. They were traders, researchers, families. Whatever had attacked them had chosen an easy target. The ships passed through regions of space that twisted light and strained sensors. Radiation washed over their hulls like rain. Gravity waves pulled at the vessels, but the human ships pushed forward, steady and unbroken. On the Resolve, Hyen stood alone for a moment, hands resting on the rail. He thought about the people who had sent the signal, how long they had waited, how many times they had sent the call, not knowing if anyone would ever hear it. He did not know if they were still alive, but that did not change anything. Far behind them, Earth turned silently, unaware of the small hope it had launched into the stars. And far ahead, beyond dangerous space and unknown threats, an old signal continued to echo into the void, repeating the same simple message. Help. The Resolve, along with its sister ships, Stonewind and Far Horizon, moved through space like silent guardians. They were heavy, armored, and ready for anything. Captain Hyen paced the bridge, his eyes scanning the panels, feeling every vibration of the engines. Space outside was black, deep, and endless, but inside the ship, everything was precise and controlled. First Officer Day came up to him with a tablet. Captain, new data from the SOS. We can triangulate the position more accurately now. The outpost is near a cluster of asteroids. The signal strength increases in bursts. Hyen nodded. Good. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We do not know what we will face. I want shields at 50% and weapons ready for immediate fire. Day quickly typed orders, and the systems responded with quiet hums. Lights flickered as energy was redirected. The crew moved with practiced calm, even as tension hovered over the bridge like a heavy cloud. In the tactical room, Yuna studied the enemy possibilities. We don't have visual confirmation, but I have simulations based on the attacks recorded from the SOS. If the attackers are anywhere near what we predict, they will try to ambush our approach, using the asteroids as cover. Hyen nodded. Keep monitoring and update me instantly. Jisoo, fire control? Jisoo sat at the weapons console, calm and focused. All systems online. Torpedo bays ready. Laser grids at optimal alignment. We can respond in under 3 seconds. Outside, the stars passed like streaks as the ships traveled faster than light. The universe seemed to stretch and fold around them, but inside, nothing changed. Human ships were designed for extreme conditions, far beyond what most species could endure. Radiation, micrometeor storms, gravity shears, these were dangers, but the crew was trained to handle them. In the mess hall, a few crew members ate quickly, others reviewed reports. Era and Nari joined the fleet remotely, feeding information and translating what little could be understood from the SOS. The messages were still fragmented, but patterns emerged. The outpost had families, researchers, and traders who were unarmed and unprepared for war. Whatever attacked them did not care. Hyan returned to the bridge. "We will arrive in 12 hours, he said quietly. "Stay alert. Nothing is guaranteed." Hours passed, and the tension increased. The crew barely spoke, except for necessary communications. Every blip on the radar or change in sensor readings was checked, verified, and noted. The enemy could be waiting, or the outpost could already be gone. There was no way to know until they arrived. They approached Hyan again. "Captain, debris field ahead. Could be remnants of the attack." Hyan leaned forward, studying the readings. "Prepare a slow approach. Shields up to 70%. I don't want surprises." The fleet adjusted speed and position, weaving carefully through the asteroid field. Every maneuver was precise, calculated, and deliberate. Stonewind and Far Horizon mirrored the movements, forming a protective triangle around the resolve. Suddenly, the sensors picked up movement. Small blips, scattered and irregular. Day frowned. Unknown ships. Not large, but fast. Possibly scavengers or patrols from the attackers. Hyan's voice was calm but firm. "Prepare defensive formation. Do not engage unless provoked. Keep shields oriented and maintain speed." Jisoo's fingers danced over the console, calculating angles and weapon ranges. "Sir, if they approach aggressively, I suggest we engage at medium range first. Laser grids can neutralize them without exposing the hull too much." Hyan agreed. "Do it, but be patient. Let them make the first mistake." The fleet moved silently, deliberately, through the chaos of rocks and debris. Small ships darted in and out, testing the humans. Each time they retreated. The attackers had not expected such endurance or precision. The humans were nothing like the weak colonies they were used to preying on. Era and Nari continued to analyze the SOS signals in real time. "Captain, the messages indicate survivors hiding in cave-like structures within the asteroids. They are alive but trapped. We need to be careful not to cause further harm." Hyan nodded. "Evacuation will be our first priority. No unnecessary risks." Hours later, the fleet emerged from the asteroid field and the outpost came into view. It was partially destroyed, broken ships floating nearby. Smoke and flickers of fire marked the damage. But there were signs of life. Small signals, faint and sporadic, indicated survivors had found hiding places. Hyan's voice was steady. "Prepare boarding and evacuation teams. Drones and transport pods ready." Dai confirmed the order, and the ships began lowering specialized craft designed for rescue missions. Gravity fields were adjusted to stabilize the area and prevent further accidents among the floating wreckage. The small survivors began to appear on sensors. Fragile bodies, frightened eyes, and trembling hands. Hyan felt a sense of urgency, a weight of responsibility pressing down. These people had called for help years ago, and were still waiting. Yuna's eyes narrowed as she scanned the surrounding area. "Captain, movement detected. Enemy ships approaching from the nebula edge. They've been waiting. They want to stop us from rescuing the survivors." Hyon's jaw tightened. Then they will learn what happens when humans answer a call for help. The fleet shifted into a defensive formation. Resolve led, flanked by Stonewind and Far Horizon. Shields pulsed with energy, weapons primed. The enemy ships appeared as thin, dark silhouettes against the glowing nebula, fast and confident. They had expected an easy attack. They would find none. The first shots fired, not at the humans, but to scare them. Jisoo reacted instantly, guiding laser grids with pinpoint accuracy. The attackers' projectiles disintegrated harmlessly against the shields. Each human ship moved with deadly precision, coordinated as if connected by thought alone. Hyon's voice was calm, but every word carried authority. Protect the civilians. Neutralize threats efficiently. No reckless moves. The small survivors watched in awe from their hiding spots as massive warships moved around them. The humans were a storm of controlled power, unstoppable yet careful. They did not kill recklessly. They did not leave anyone behind. They fought to protect, not to conquer. Minutes stretched into tense hours. The attackers tested and failed, their confidence breaking as each attempt was countered. Hyan led the maneuver, blocking escape routes while opening safe paths for evacuation pods. Each survivor was carefully lifted, secured, and transported to the waiting ship's dock in the last moments. As the final pod left, Hyan watched the nebula, aware of the enemy ships retreating into the shadows. The survivors were safe. That was all that mattered. Era and Nari documented everything, their fingers flying over consoles. The SOS had finally been answered. Humanity had crossed the void, braved danger, and fulfilled its promise. And the survivors would tell their stories for years. Speaking of the humans who came when no one else did, the survivors were on board the human ships now, their fear slowly giving way to cautious relief. The Resolve's transport pods hummed softly, each carrying small groups of people who had spent months, maybe years, hiding in the asteroids. Some were injured, some were weak from hunger and stress. All were shaken, but alive. Captain Hyan stood on the bridge, watching the retreating nebula behind them. Enemy ships were gone, scattered into the darkness, unsure if they had seen the full strength of human resolve. Even a small taste of the humans' defense had proven enough to make them hesitate. Day approached him quietly. "Captain, the survivors are responding to medical attention. Injuries range from minor to moderate. No fatalities confirmed yet." Hyan nodded. Relief was tempered by caution. He had seen too many battles where initial victories were followed by disaster. "Keep monitoring. We are not safe until they are back in secure space." In the medical bay, Dr. Sun and her team worked tirelessly. The survivors were fragile, but the humans were precise. Every injury treated, every wound cleaned and bandaged. They moved efficiently, with compassion, speaking in calm tones to ease panic. Even the language barrier did not prevent understanding. Action spoke louder than words. A young survivor named Kyo looked around nervously. He had never seen ships like these, had never imagined help arriving. He clutched the arm of Nurse Mina as she tended to a wound. You came for us?" he asked, eyes wide. Mina smiled gently. "Yes, we heard you. We always come." Kyo's lips trembled, and a tear rolled down his cheek. He had waited so long for someone to hear the SOS, and now they were here, safe. Back on the bridge, Yuna monitored nearby space. "Captain, we have readings. Sensors indicate movement further in the nebula. Not the attackers, but unknown vessels. Could be scouts or merchants. They are cautious, keeping distance." Hyen considered the information. Do not engage. Let them observe. We are not here to fight more unless necessary. They nodded. Understood, sir. Shield orientation adjusted to cover the fleet from all directions. The fleet moved carefully, keeping the survivors in the center protected. Every maneuver calculated. Every action deliberate. Humanity was known for endurance. But now they were demonstrating precision, patience. And Control. Era and Nari were busy decoding the fragments of the SOS messages that had reached Earth. Patterns emerged that gave insight into the attackers' methods. They were predators, organized and cruel, preying on those who could not defend themselves. They had underestimated humans. Nari shook her head. They did not expect this. They thought the outer sectors were empty, weak, and easy to dominate. Era nodded. They did not know humans. That is their mistake? Hyen turned to Day. Prepare for arrival at the nearest secure station. Transport pods will dock there. Civilians will be transferred to safety, and we will gather intelligence on the attackers. Hours passed in tense quiet. The survivors began to regain strength, sharing small meals provided by the ship's supplies. They watched the humans in awe, learning quickly that these were not ordinary warriors. They were patient, disciplined, and unwavering. Even in danger, they cared for the weak. One of the older survivors, a man named Hoon, approached Nurse Mina. Your people? You came even though you knew there were risks? Mina nodded. Yes, that is what we do. No one should be left behind when they call for help. Hoon looked around at the other humans. I have never seen anyone like this. Brave, careful, kind, Mina smiled. That is humanity. Back on the bridge, Yuna's screen flickered with readings. Captain, I am detecting residual energy signatures. The enemy may be regrouping in the nebula. They are cautious, likely scared of direct confrontation. Hyen's jaw tightened. Good. Let them stay hidden. Our mission is complete. We are here to rescue, not to hunt. The fleet approached the secure station, a massive structure orbiting a small planet. Docking procedures began, with transport pods carefully aligning. The survivors moved in orderly fashion, though their excitement and relief were visible. Each step toward safety was a triumph. Captain Hyen observed the scene from the bridge. They are safe, he said softly, almost to himself. They glanced at him. Yes, sir. Thanks to this crew. Thanks to humanity. The SOS was answered. Hyen nodded. We will not stop answering. Anywhere, anytime, whoever calls. As the survivors were escorted into the secure station, some looked back at the fleet. The humans' warships gleamed in the light of distant stars. Powerful, unyielding, yet protective. A new respect formed, not just for their strength, but for their values. The humans fought not for conquest, not for glory, but for those in need. Era and Nari continued to study the enemy signals, mapping possible escape routes and attack patterns. We may need to track them later, Era said. They are dangerous, and they will remember this defeat. Nari nodded. But for now, the survivors are safe. That is what matters. Captain Hyen allowed himself a brief moment of rest. The tension of battle, the constant vigilance, and the responsibility of lives in their hands weighed heavily. But humanity had shown its face once more. Calm, careful, and resolute. As the fleet prepared to leave the nebula, a small signal arrived from the survivors. It was simple, broken in language, but clear in meaning. Thank you. We are alive. Hyen responded silently, not through words, but through action. The fleet would continue, always ready to cross the void for those who cried for help. They had answered one SOS, but the universe was full of others waiting. And Earth would come. The fleet remained near the secure station, but the humans knew their job was not yet done. The attackers who had destroyed the outpost were still in the nebula. Though weakened and cautious, they were not gone. Captain Hyen studied the star map, each blip representing potential threats that could rise again. That First Officer Day approached him. "Captain, sensors indicate movement. The enemy is regrouping. They may attempt to return to their original positions or strike another weak target." Hyen's expression remained calm. "Then we will intercept if necessary. Prepare for a possible engagement, but no aggressive action unless they threaten the survivors." On the bridge, Yuna ran tactical simulations. "Captain, if they advance toward nearby colonies, we can block them efficiently. Our fleet is strong, and our positioning gives us advantage." Hyen nodded. "Then let them test us. They will see that Earth does not ignore SOS calls." Meanwhile, aboard the secure station, survivors were settling in. Families began to speak to each other, sharing stories of fear and hope. Children laughed quietly, their voices unfamiliar yet comforting to the crew. Every life saved was a small victory, a reminder of why they risked so much. Dr. Sun continued to care for the injured, aided by Nurse Mina and several other crew members. Each patient stabilized increased morale across the fleet. Even the hardened soldiers and officers felt the weight of their success. Ira and Nari worked tirelessly on the SOS records, translating and cross-referencing fragments. "Captain, we have enough information to understand the attackers' patterns," Era said. "They are nomadic, preying on weak colonies in outer space. They rarely face resistance, and when they do, they retreat quickly." Hyen considered this. "Good. Keep monitoring. Any sign of them moving toward other colonies, we intercept immediately." Day spoke up. "Captain, the survivors have sent small messages to neighboring stations. Many are learning that humans arrived to help. This may affect morale across sectors." Hyen allowed a small nod. "Then our work is already extending beyond this mission. Make sure our actions are recorded accurately." The human fleet stayed vigilant, patrolling the edge of the nebula. The enemy ships were cautious, hiding behind asteroids and gas clouds. When one vessel moved too close, the Resolve and Stonewind aligned shields and weapons, projecting a clear message. Any attack would be met with precision and force. Jizu coordinated firing exercises, not for immediate engagement, but for preparedness. The crew practiced maneuvers, tested weapon systems, and maintained communication drills. Every human knew that control and patience were as important as strength. Hyen walked through the crew quarters. Soldiers and engineers moved with calm efficiency. Each one understood the weight of the mission. Saving lives had been the first goal, but now they ensured that no further attacks could harm the survivors. Humanity's presence was enough to deter the enemy, but the humans did not rely on fear alone. In the observation deck, young Kyo watched the stars with awe. He had survived the outpost destruction and had now witnessed humans move across space to save him. He did not fully understand their strength, but he felt the courage it represented. A lesson he would carry forever. Night and day were meaningless in space, but Hyen observed the passage of time carefully. Every hour of vigilance strengthened humanity's reputation in the sector. Word of the rescue, even if fragmentary, would travel quickly. Neighboring colonies would know that Earth answered SOS calls, that humans were willing to risk extreme danger to protect the vulnerable. Era reported to Hyen, "Captain, the attackers may try one more assault to reclaim territory or intimidate the sectors. Sensors show slight movement. They may be testing our response." Hyen's voice was firm. "Then we prepare for that. Activate decoy signals and maintain our defensive posture. Let them realize that humans fight with precision, not recklessness." Hours passed, and the enemy did not attack. They observed, tested, and retreated further into the nebula. The humans remained calm, waiting, ready for any sudden move. Patience was a weapon as much as laser grids or torpedoes. The survivors were now interacting with the humans more openly. Kyo spoke with Nurse Mina, asking questions about the ships and crew. He learned that humans had always valued courage, protection, and the willingness to act when others were in danger. Hyan observed all of this quietly from the bridge. The mission had evolved beyond immediate rescue. It was now a lesson in humanity's resolve, discipline, and values. Every action sent a message across the stars. Earth listens, and when a call goes unanswered by others, humans will answer. The fleet prepared to leave the nebula once more, carrying the rescued civilians to safer zones. Captain Hyan gave final orders. Maintain sensors on all enemy activity. Continue recording the survivors' testimony. Any attempt at harassment will be met with decisive response, but do not provoke unnecessary conflict. As the fleet departed, the nebula's light reflected on the Resolve's hull. The humans had entered a dangerous place and emerged not just victorious, but disciplined, protective, and respected. The survivors would tell their story, and the attackers would remember. Earth's answer had traveled across space, and it left a mark that no one could ignore. Era and Nari continued monitoring the communications channels, documenting every detail. Captain, the message of this mission is spreading. Neighboring colonies are sending signals of gratitude and respect. Humanity's reputation is growing. Hyan allowed a small smile. Then we have done more than rescue. We have reminded the universe that help is never refused. Keep tracking signals. There may be more SOS calls. We will answer each one. The fleet moved into the darkness of space once again, ready for new challenges. The survivors were safe, the enemy was wary, and humanity's presence in the outer sectors had grown stronger. Captain Hyan looked out into the void, aware that each SOS answered was a promise kept, a lesson taught, and a story to be told across the stars. The mission was far from over, but Earth's voice had been heard loud and clear. The fleet continued through deep space, carrying the rescued civilians toward secure sectors. Captain Hyan stood on the bridge, watching the stars glide past at impossible speeds. The calm precision of his crew contrasted sharply with the chaos they had faced just days before. Every movement, every adjustment, was a testament to their training and resolve. First Officer Bay reported in. Captain, all survivors are stable. Medical teams confirm there are no further injuries. Everyone is accounted for. Hyan nodded. Good. Keep monitoring sensors. Any anomalies, we investigate. We cannot afford to assume safety. In the transport pods, the survivors were beginning to recover. Kyo, once trembling and fearful, now walked cautiously among other survivors, asking questions about the human fleet and their abilities. Older survivors shared quiet conversations, comparing life before the attack and after humans had arrived to save them. Dr. Sun checked on the last group of children. She smiled gently. You are safe now. Humans are here to protect you. Kyo looked at her, eyes wide. Even when we are far away? Even when no one else comes? Sun nodded. Yes, that is who we are. When someone calls for help, we come. Back on the bridge, Yuna scanned space for residual threats. Captain, enemy signals show no pursuit. They are retreating into deep nebula sectors. They may regroup, but they are hesitant. Our presence has stopped further attacks for now. Hyan exhaled quietly. Then we will continue to protect those in need. The galaxy must understand that Earth answers SOS calls. Era and Nari worked on debriefing messages from the survivors. Captain, their accounts describe your crew's precision and patience. They were frightened at first, but seeing your actions gave them hope. Hyan allowed himself a small nod. Then we have not only saved lives, but restored faith. Humanity's actions speak louder than words. In the fleet, soldiers and engineers moved efficiently, maintaining systems, checking weapons, and preparing for any unforeseen events. Even in the quiet moments, vigilance remained. Every human knew that danger could appear at any time, but they also knew that their purpose went beyond simple combat. The secure station appeared ahead, orbiting a quiet planet. Docking procedures began for the transport pods, ensuring a smooth transfer of survivors. Each pod aligned perfectly, guided by the human crew. Fear and uncertainty slowly gave way to relief and gratitude. Once the survivors were safely aboard the station, many turned to look back at the fleet. The warships gleamed against the stars, silent and powerful. Even those who did not understand human language recognized courage, protection, and determination in every movement. Hyan addressed his crew. Our mission is complete for now. The survivors are safe. We have shown that humans do not abandon those in need. Keep logs of everything. This information will serve as proof that Earth answers distress calls, no matter how far. Day nodded. Sir, the message is already spreading through local communications. Other colonies are sending thanks and recognition. Humanity's reputation is growing. Hyan allowed himself a rare smile. Good, let it grow. But remember, our duty is never done. The universe is vast, and there will always be those in danger. On the observation deck, Kyo and some other children watched the stars. The stars seemed endless, but for the first time, fear was absent. They had seen humans come when no one else would, and that memory would stay with them forever. Era and Nari finalized reports for Earth Command. Captain, every detail of the mission is documented. The survivors' testimony, sensor readings, enemy patterns, and human responses are recorded. Hyan nodded. Then send it. The message must reach every corner of the sectors. Let it be known, when a call for help reaches Earth, it will be answered. The fleet prepared to leave the sector, moving into open space with renewed purpose. No signal, no SOS would be ignored. Humans had crossed dangerous voids, faced unknown enemies, and protected the weak. Their presence had changed perceptions, built respect, and left a mark across the outer sectors. Even the enemy had learned. They had seen the Resolve and its companions in action, precise, disciplined, and unyielding. They would remember that humans answer calls for help, no matter the cost. As the fleet moved onward, Captain Hyan gazed into the infinite stars. Each dot of light represented countless worlds, countless lives. Some would call for help, some would remain unaware of danger. But wherever a voice cried out in need, humanity would move. Steadfast, patient, and relentless. The universe was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. But Earth's fleet carried a promise, a legacy, and a warning. Any SOS that reached human ears would never go unanswered. In the cold expanse of space, that knowledge spread quietly, growing stronger with every mission, every rescue, and every life saved.